Everyone, my name is Mowmita Jabir. I am with Center for Online Learning. I joined recently, but I was with IT for a very long time. And Blackboard, I'm pretty sure everyone knows, is my all-time favorite tool. But I started working with peer review when actually Amber came in, and she actually wanted to pass on papers for peer review. So we thought that no, that we cannot do that way. We have to find a tool that can do it automatically for her. So with that said, I'm going to introduce Amber and she will take over, and then I'll show you how it can be done in Blackboard.
Hi, everyone. So, yep, my name is Amber. Just to how this all started for me was, of course, I had taken the ungrading course with ungrading classes or sections with Julie and ACERT, and really started me thinking about how we can be more creative in our grading and how maybe our current grading system isn't working. So, reading all the books that were along with the session were really helpful, the ungrading books, and I'm sure Julie can help you with all that if you're interested. But so one of the aspects about the ungrading was the peer review assignments. And one of the things that really spoke to me about that was that some of the students weren't actually getting what we were talking about in class. They weren't, we think they understand, and I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sure that they don't sometimes. So just to go back, I was talking to Xiao, and I said, yeah, I have almost a 200-person class, and I'm sending emails back and forth. And she's like, you're doing what? And she says, you're going to go visit Mowmita, and you guys are going to go figure out how to make your system a lot easier for your large classrooms. And so that's exactly what we did. So just to reiterate, I really believe, and after talking to many students, and this is anecdotal, but talking to many students, that they don't actually get what we want when we're grading them, especially when we're giving them a written assignment. So here I am in an animal behavior class, and they've never taken this class before. So I'm asking them to do something new called an ethogram, and some of them are getting it and some of them are not. So when I did the peer review, they said, oh, that's what you're looking for, when they actually got to see my rubric. And so it was so incredibly helpful that they saw that. So so they understood the assignment immediately, or better, they understood me. They were understanding what I was asking for so much better. Also, another incredible reason for doing this kind of peer review, I find in my other classes too, and this is heavy writing material classes, is it really improves their work, right? So they might get a student, either the student they peer review is really good or really bad. It actually helps in both directions. They see that, wow, this is what I should sound like when it's really good. Or maybe a student says, oh my God, that sounds awful. I don't want to sound like that. So that was incredibly helpful. Also helping theory of mind, right? Being a good writer in any field, in any work, you need to be able to think in somebody else's head. And until you have to review other work, you don't put yourself in another person's head. And so I find that, not just obviously for psychology, but being able to read a piece as if somebody else is reading it is really important. Peer review really improved that theory of mind kind of thinking. It's really, I use it in my small classes. I've used it in a lot of small classes, and also, of course, in my large classes. As you'll see, especially as Mowmita goes through it, you'll see how incredibly automated it is, and how easy it was, and so much easier keeping track than doing it on my own. I mean, it was kind of ludicrous what I was doing before. And that's why Xiao sent me right to Mowmita's office. So really incredible for large formats when you're dealing with a lot of students. And I'll show you more about that. And it can be done for any assignment that a student can load up, that's Word or PDF. And maybe Mowmita can speak more about this, but as far as I know, as long you can load up any of those assignments and then it can be looked at. You can see a screenshot for my class, from my animal behavior classes. So there's the grading sheets. So I give the students an idea of what's going on. And I'll go more into that in a second. So the ethogram assignment itself, so the students, what they have to fill out, and then the peer review. So that's where they go to actually click in to do their peer review. So you can see it's pretty easy. They get the assignment themselves, and then they can do the peer review. Go ahead, Mowmita, next slide, please. All right, so you can see from my class, here is a screenshot. So this can be done, the peer reviews can be done anonymously or not. That's up to you. I find, maybe because I'm in psychology, I think being unbiased is probably a better thing. It can be randomly assigned. So I had almost 200 students in my class, and I actually asked it to be random. I thought that was much more interesting. Or if you do want to pair certain students with certain students, which can be beneficial, you can do this. We have deadlines within deadlines, which means that the deadline for the first part of the homework has to be completed before the peer review can open up. So I assigned the piece of work, and they had, say, their 2 or 3 weeks, whatever you want, to complete that work. And then once that is, the deadline has happened, then the peer reviews open up, and not until then. So, and again, you can change all of that. You can make it right after each other, but you actually have to have the homework done before the peer reviews open up. And that's more, for logistics, and also ease for you. You want to make sure your students get it in. Also, you can have something like, if the student doesn't hand one in themselves, they can't do a peer review, or they can. So there's a lot of control in this. Mowmita, next slide, please. Here's just another screenshot of what we can see. Again, it's really easy for me to see what's going on. This is behind the scenes. Of course, this is in Turnitin. I should have said that to begin with. This is all in Turnitin and in the PeerMark, which Mowmita is going to show you more in a second. So it's really easy for me to see. You can see here, this is the submitted by 2 reviews. So I can see the system assigned means it's it has assigned another student's work. And then you can see the self-review. And I can see that very quickly for the person. And you can actually see on the other side, it's just the opposite. It's just the flip. So you can see the self-review of the other person and the system assigned. I will say, I'm not sure if I didn't figure it out properly or if there's a few glitches, but sometimes I'd see repeated works, but it was no big deal. But all of those read reviews, those are all hot. So you can click on them and open them up and read them immediately. You can read, as you can see, you can read all the reviews at once. So really incredibly easy to see all the work done. Mowmita, next slide, please. So as far as we found, there's 2 kinds of questions that we can see that you can ask. You can see the screenshot. This is my actual ethogram. So you can see the student is filling in. My questions are in bold and they're filling in. So the peer review is on the side. So you can see I have actually freestanding questions, 2, 3, and 4 on the right. And you can see there's the questions I'm giving the student, and I'm asking for their percentages of each section. And you can see my part's in bold, their part is not bold, and those are their responses. So really, really simple. The scaling questions is 1 to 4. That's another type of question you can use. So you've got those 2 choices that you can ask. So I use this form for both for the peer review and the self-review. I use the same questions. I reworded it ever so slightly. Instead of, is the hypothesis clear? I wrote, do you think your hypothesis is clear? And shamefully, you can see the arrow on top where it hits to the grade. I actually didn't use the grades. I didn't use that function, and I should have. You can put the grades right in. It goes right into Blackboard, right for the student and for me. So that's pretty incredible, pretty fast. I know I'm going really fast, so if anybody has any questions, you can also see the person on top. I have blacked their name out or greened their name out, but you can see when they're complete. So with their self and their with their review and their self-review. So it makes it really easy for me to see who's completed the work and who hasn't. Mowmita, next slide, please. So as well as that, now you can see also I've greened out the names, but you can see when it said 1 of 2 reviews, that means they did one of the reviews, either the self or the peer review. Again, if you assigned it where they couldn't do a peer review, that means they only did their review. Sorry, they only did the, actually, I don't know. They only did one of the 2 reviews, either the self or the peer. You can see the second person there, 2 out of 2, that means they did both. So again, it makes it really easy for me to see who's completed it. And then under more actions, you can see where my red arrow is. I can also write reviews right on it. So I can actually make comments right there. Again, I can see and read all the reviews, all the student reviews, all 200 of them. I can actually see them all on one page, which was a little overbearing, but it was possible. I can print read the reviews that the student submitted, and I can print the reviews the student received, right, the peer reviews. So it's really incredible, all of the functions that were here. Again, I didn't use the grade function, shame on me, but which should probably use that more so in the future. You can see the grade out of 100. I could have put the grades in right there. Mowmita, next slide. So just to show you how I do it in class, these are my instructions from the syllabus to encourage this ungrading kind of view. I tell the students that the grade for their work is actually an average of 3 grades. It's the self-review, the peer review, and my review. And while if anybody of you are not aware, you know, the ungrading is pretty incredible. The peer review and the self-review, as teachers, we want to think that it's not going to be accurate. It's incredibly accurate. The students are giving themselves actually grades that are almost incredibly aligned with mine. Once in a while, I get a student who actually gives themselves, who fails themselves when they shouldn't be failed. You know, I've got some outliers in my data, but for the most part, they're incredibly accurate. And also the students, if you want them to see the peer review, they can see the peer reviews or not see the peer reviews, that's up to you. But it really is incredible to show them and give them some power over their grades a little bit. Also, as you can see, I have a disclosure in my syllabus that I do have the right to overwrite a review or a grade that is not accurate, but I'm happy to discuss that with them. And it's only happened to me once out of hundreds and hundreds of students. So pretty incredible. But I do make it clear, especially from the very beginning. But I think one of the most important things was learning from my students. Once they saw that rubric, right, for the peer and the self-review, they're like, oh my God, I understand so much more of what you're asking for. And I think that was a really good lesson for me, that while we do understand, while we think we understand, we're being very clear. Of course, there's always 100 ways to think about any one assignment. So this really helped them improve themselves and understand what I was saying. Next slide, I think, is you, Mowmita. Oh, no, we went back.
Hold on. Yep. There we go. Thank you, Amber. So of course that you already know the tool that we use is Turnitin, and it's integrated in Blackboard. It used to be under assessment. They recently changed it. Now you can find it under build content, and it's called Turnitin LTI 1.3. So within Turnitin, PeerMark is a feature of Turnitin that is used for peer review and self-review and all those, right? So, so what are some key features, right? So Amber already mentioned a lot, but I think you should know that, you know, paper can be assigned, of course, automatically, which is, again, great for large classes. You can do it manually, and it also can be self-selected by students as well. And of course, the reviews can be anonymous or also, you know, attributed. And there are only, unfortunately, 2 types of questions that you can assign for the students to write about. One is free response and one is scale questions. There are no other types of questions there. There are some other things. Students can be excluded from the reviews, as And if a student did not submit the base assignment, they can be allowed to review papers as well. So when we are creating a peer review assignment, we have to think about the timeline, right? So we have to, that's what Amber mentioned, the deadline within a deadline. So, or, I may call it deadline after deadline, right? So you have to have the first base paper, the paper that all students submit, and then there is a gap time if you want to allow them. And then PeerMark or peer review starts. Then, of course, there is a due date for the peer review to be submitted by the students. And there is a PeerMark posted. And that's when all the reviews get posted. I remember when we were working with Amber, because I actually don't get to, see student and their work. So we are like, okay, why the students are not seeing the reviews? They've done it. However, we had to wait for this PeerMark post date for the students to see the reviews. So again, if they don't see the feedback or they don't see the the reviews, is because that the date hasn't passed. So I was hoping to actually show it in Blackboard, but we are slow, a little low on time, and I want Q&A because I am pretty sure everyone has questions for Renee and Amber. So I'm just going to go through with the screenshot. So again, any of the area, sorry, it went too fast. There we are. So you first create the base assignment. You have your title, instructions, the grade you want to enable, of course, the start and due date. But what we have to remember is to enable the PeerMark. So if you don't do that on the base assignment, we are not able to then set it up for PeerMark. So that's the only thing we really need to remember when we are setting up the base assignment. So once that's done, this comes up, PeerMark. And again, as I said, if you don't enable it, it will not show up. And from there, you click on PeerMark setup, and then you do, again, you can have the same title or just add peer review next to it. Again, your points, the dates, and then you click on additional settings, right? So by default, Turnitin will do the pair of the students randomly. But if you want to change that, you click on additional settings, and from there, and again, it's also possible to just allow them the maximum points if you want to, without going into grading each of them. You can set up whether you want the students to see each other's name, all those things we talk about that possible, you set up right here. And if you want the students to self-select the paper, you also say here, yes. And for the self-review part, this is what it is. So self-review is not a separate part. It's part of the PeerMark assignment. You just have to go to the additional settings and make sure to select yes on this part. And of course, you hit save and continue. And then you set up the questions you're going to ask. And of course, you have to, you can have your questions ready, or sorry, again, going too far, you can add from the library. So if you, again, go to your Blackboard and just do it testing, Turnitin has a lot of questions. You can choose from that. You can also edit those questions, make it on your own. Once you, or if you want to add your own question, you can save it to the library to use it your next classes. You can, as I said, edit it, delete it, reorder the questions, all possible. You can have as many questions as you want to ask the students. There is no limit to that. Once that's done, then you go to the distribution part. So when it's a large class, it's a 200 student class. If you want to do it randomly, you can do so, or you can also pair. So simply click on the plus sign. So once you have, if you want to pair them, you click on plus sign, and then you see the other students, simply click on it. Then you will see forced, it will say 1. If you have 200 students, you still want to pair them manually, you can actually go to these filters and settings, and it gives you the option to only show you unpaired student. So that way you are not going through all 200 of, or all of your students. You only see your unpaired student and pair them. If you want to exclude one of the students, you simply click on the minus. They just, it just remove them from that. So that's how you do the setup. And I do have a 2-minute video, which I'm not going to play because we are out of time. I will share this slide with you. You're welcome to play it. This video in 2 minutes includes almost all the features of Turnitin, except for peer review. So, but definitely when you have time, feel free to watch it. Again, I will share this with you. And I also have some resources if you want to use peer review or Turnitin in your course. Provide students the guides for them, how to do a review, right? How they see their feedback, how they submit a Turnitin paper, because they're used to submitting assignments within Blackboard or Blackboard assignment tool. So Turnitin may look little different for them. So all the resources is right there for you, and I am available to meet with any of you to help you through as well.